In 1975, J.C. and Glenda Patton hosted a family reunion in Denver City, Texas. The family gathered for fun and games and to reminisce on old times. Little did they know that danger was lurking. This would-be happy family reunion would turn into one of the greatest tragedies this small West Texas town has ever seen. Sunday, February 2nd, was a normal, slow night at the Denver City, Texas Police Department. Patrolman James Tucker was working the night shift. It was already a bit of an unusual night. The typically arid desert with blowing dust stinging the skin was cold and rainy, creating a thickness to the normally hot, thin air. It was Sunday morning around 5 a.m., and the streets were abandoned as they were nearly every other night. However, the monotony of this night was broken when the phone rang at 5:15 a.m. Officer Tucker answered the call. On the other end was Glenda Patton, the wife of well-known local farmer J.C. Patton. She told the officer something that made his heart drop, and then she told him that her family was about to die. Officer Tucker and another patrolman loaded up in their police cruiser and headed out of town towards the Patton farm. The rain had compromised visibility and turned the roads to mud. They slid all over the roads from one ditch to the next. About a half a mile from the Patton house, they came across a truck that had slid off of the road and was resting in the ditch. Upon investigating, they found Steve Sparger. He was 19 years old, just 1 year removed from being the small-town football and baseball hero, so they knew exactly who he was. He was slumped over the steering wheel with no visible injuries, but he was dead. They continued up the road to the Patton house. In front of the house was a running car, and beside the house was a truck. They approached with caution and found 5 people dead in the car and 2 more in the truck. They also found the farmer, J.C. Patton, lying under the truck next to the driver's side door, also deceased. Inside the house, they found overturned chairs and rumpled beds, but no other people. The 2 officers then headed over to the next-door neighbor's house. The only thing they found there was a dead dog and a dead cat. Upon looking around the grounds, they found numerous other deceased animals, including chickens, rabbits, birds, coyotes, and a donkey. The scene, along with the thing that Mrs. Patton had told Officer Tucker, the 2 officers had a pretty good idea of what was happening. This is Denver City, Texas, surrounded by oil rigs. The Greater Permian Basin produces 40% of the total oil harvested in the United States and 15% of the natural gas. Denver City lies in this region. It is a town built on oil. The name Denver City was established by the town's founders, C.S. Amin and Ben Egink, who named the town after the oil company, Denver Productions. The city part comes from the hope that they had that the small town would someday grow into a bustling city. It hasn't. By 1975, the time that our current story takes place, the population had grown to approximately 5,000 people. There it remains today. But at peak production, the 44 square miles surrounding Denver City, Texas produces approximately 250,000 barrels of oil a day. There is so much oil that the entire area smells of it. Locals say that the only ones who complain are outsiders that visit. As they say, the smell is the smell of money. At 75% of the total economy of Denver City, it's safe to say that the town relies on it, so much so that it must be protected. However, there's a price that comes with the profit. Just 2 months earlier, 6 oilfield workers for Gulf were found deceased near an oil pipeline leak. 4 of the men were simply lying on the ground, while 2 of them were face down in a pool of oil. Autopsies performed on the 6 men revealed the 2 men that were face down drowned in a pool of oil from which they should have easily been able to escape. The other 4 died of respiratory failure. Furthermore, in Abilene, 2 other oilfield workers had died just 2 months before the oil drowning incident. 17 people had died in just 4 months in West Texas alone, including the Patton family. This is what happened. On Saturday, February 1st, 1975, members of the Patton family gathered at J.C. Patton's farm for a small family reunion. The farmer, J.C. Patton, his wife, Glenda, and their daughter, Dolores, who was 17, all lived at the house. Dolores, the 17-year-old, had her friend over, Clara Deavy, who was 14. Also at the house for the reunion was Alma Lee Anderson and his wife, Edith. Edith was Glenda's sister, and their mother, Evelyn, was also there with her husband, J.R. May. They spent the day having fun, enjoying each other's company, and reminiscing about the past. When the night came to a close, they all decided to stay at the Patton house. At approximately 5:15 Sunday morning, the Pattons' neighbor, 50 yards away, Judith Merrill, awoke when she smelled a rotten odor. She immediately woke her husband and the 2 children and ran to the car outside. Tom Merrill, her husband, helped load the children into the car as quickly as possible, and they took off down the road. A short way down the driveway, they reached a fork in the road. One way led to town and the other to the Patton house. Tom's plan was to turn toward the Patton farm and alert his neighbors and help them escape. However, just before he turned down the driveway, his wife in the passenger seat lost consciousness. She slumped over and slid down onto the floorboard, and Tom knew that he couldn't stop to help the Pattons. He needed to get his wife to town and get her help immediately. As he turned toward town, his wife's limp body fell over onto his leg, forcing the accelerator. The car sped up, sliding across the muddy Texas road in the rain. Tom fought to keep the car on the road while trying to move his wife's dying body from his leg. If Tom went off the road into the ditch, the car would surely get stuck and his wife would surely die. The car swerved across the road back and forth, leaving tracks in the mud. Tom managed to get his wife off of his leg and recovered control of the vehicle just in time to see a truck in the ditch on the side of the muddy road. As he drove past, he peered into the window of the truck. There was Steve Sparger's lifeless body, draped over the steering wheel. Tom had no time to stop and help. He had to get his wife to the hospital and get his kids out of danger. Back at the Patton house, the family was waking up to the same rotten odor from which the Merrills had just fled. In a panic, the adults ran to the rooms and got the children out of bed. Glenda Patton ran to the telephone and dialed the emergency number for the police department. Officer James Tucker answered. In a panic, she said, "It's gas, and my family is about to die." She hung up the phone and gathered the kids, still in their pajamas and half asleep. The group of 8 people made it outside and separated into 2 groups. 5 ran to the car, got in, and started it, while the other 3 ran to the truck beside the house. 2 got in the truck as J.C. Patton attempted to get in the driver's side, but it was too late. J.C. collapsed and fell under the truck at the driver's door. The other 2 lost consciousness in the truck and slumped down in their seats in the truck and died. Alma, Edith, Glenda, and the 14-year-old friend Clara got in the car. Dolores Patton, the 17-year-old daughter of Glenda and JC, got behind the wheel. She threw the car into reverse to turn the car around before heading down the road. Just as the car began rolling backwards, she too lost consciousness. Everyone else in the car was unconscious too. The car, still in reverse, rolled back in several circles before coming to rest against some farm equipment. All 8 were dead. The 2 police officers arrived a short time later. Knowing that they were dealing with some sort of gas, they wore protective equipment so they could search the area without fear of being poisoned. After discovering the 8 bodies at the house and the body of Steve Sparger in the truck on the side of the road, they knew that they were looking for a gas leak. They quickly found the leak about 150 yards from the Patton house. They found a massive chunk of ice on an experimental gas well, indicating escaping carbon dioxide. The company that placed the experimental well, Atlantic Rich Field, or ARCO, subsequently released the components of the gas injection well: 95% carbon dioxide, 4% hydrogen sulfide, and 1% other miscellaneous gases. The killer was the hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide can be fatal in concentrations as low as 500 parts per million. At 700, 2 breaths can be fatal. Further making hydrogen sulfide deadly is that it paralyzes the respiratory system, first reducing the sense of smell. So, after a few breaths, the victim's sense of smell is decreased, causing the victim to believe that the gas has dissipated. Hydrogen sulfide is also heavier than air, so it settles in low areas, like a pool of poison. The conditions that night had low wind and was raining, helping the deadly pool of poisonous gas to slowly move across the ground from the experimental gas well to the Patton family home without dissipating. Once they smelled it, they had no chance. Steve Sparger, the 19-year-old that died on the side of the road, was there because he was checking on the well. He was an employee of ARCO and was heading out to the well to check on the known leak. When they found the truck, it was in the ditch and in reverse. Stephen must have smelled the gas and thrown the truck into reverse in a failed attempt to escape. The gas overcame him and he passed out and the truck slid into the ditch. As opposed to the many previous deaths due to hydrogen sulfide, which were nearly all oil workers and a result of natural wells, other than Steve, These deaths were not oil workers. These were simply people that unfortunately lived next to the experimental well, and the hydrogen sulfide was injected to increase the pressure in the well to force the oil to the surface. The hydrogen sulfide that killed these people was put there by the oil company, and someone must be held responsible. 1 month after the tragedy at the Patton House, 100 oil company representatives gathered to discuss the use of hydrogen sulfide in heavy oil recovery. Due to the highly miscible nature of hydrogen sulfide, it increases the amount of oil that can be recovered from natural wells. Therefore, the industry was extremely reluctant to remove it from the injection gas. After 5 hours of testimony from the oil company's representatives, including arguing about how oil work is wrought with dangers and everyone who chooses to do this job accepts those risks, and how the oil companies are doing everything as safely as they possibly can, Tom Seeley, an attorney from ARCO, compared the deaths of oil workers to the astronauts that died in a cabin fire testing the Apollo 1 mission in 1967. In the end, they recommended warning residents who lived near these injection wells of the dangers and reevaluating emergency contingency plans. On the way out, 2 representatives were overheard saying, "I don't know what, if anything, we've accomplished here today. Probably not a goddamn thing, but maybe it'll be enough to keep the press off our ass." When it was all said and done, the remaining members of the Patton family filed a $20 million lawsuit against ARCO. The lawsuit was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Hydrogen sulfide is still used as a component in injection fluids. There have been advancements making its use safer today, such as greater knowledge and understanding and mapping of the geological structures and utilizing chemicals to inject into the hydrogen sulfide in the ground to produce environmentally safe products. However, there are still risks. Between 2011 and 2017, there were 46 worker deaths due to hydrogen sulfide. This is True Mysteries. Please like, leave comments, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.